It's Jonathan Yates with Wine Channel Television. We're on Capitol Hill for another episode of the Bipartisan Appeal of Wine with Representative Denver Riggleman from Virginia. Representative, thank you for taking the time to join us.
Love being here.
So you graduated from the University of Virginia. You've got Charlottesville in your district.
I do.
Anything new going on down at UVA?
I've heard, I think we won some kind of national championship not too long ago. So I'm pretty excited about that. No, it was amazing to have that happen. And I just remember I started going to basketball games when it was U-Haul. So, back in the day. So the fact that we were able to see that and, we have so much history with Charlottesville and UVA, my family, it was just incredible.
Now, most of my family went to the University of Virginia. And a cousin of mine who has both a bachelor's and a master's from the University of Virginia, he texted after the game. He never thought he'd see this championship happen. Did you ever think he'd see UVA win the championship?
I did not, especially after last year when they lost in the first round. If you're a long-suffering University of Virginia fan.
Hey, I'm an Orioles fan.
Yeah, Orioles, that's very long-suffering. But, gosh, I'm sorry. And I'm also a Redskins fan, so it puts me in an awful time. But I think, when you see what UVA did and just the classiness of the coach and the team, it's amazing that the good guys win sometimes, and this year the good guys won.
You didn't think you'd win the championship during the Ralph Sampson era. You were ranked number one in every preseason poll that during.
Oh, I know. Now, so that was what? I was 11, 12, and 13 years old, and my first games were at U-Haul, but you just don't, you're not following quite as close, and what was it, Chaminade that we lost to?
Sure.
Something
From
like
Hawaii.
that. Yeah. So, it's just crazy stuff, and but now. Seeing Tony Bennett, seeing the guys win, it was just incredible, really incredible.
So the interesting thing is both the University of Virginia and the Virginia wine scene owe everything, or a great deal, to Thomas Jefferson, who was the first wine connoisseur in the United States. So what do you think makes Virginia wine so special?
I think Virginia, it's, for the soil. I can talk to, whiskey a lot, but also the water. But, for me, it's an amazing climb, and I think when you look around where I live and you look at the amount of grapes that are being grown from King Family Vineyard, up in Charlottesville, in Veritas and Afton Mountain and Cardinal Point, I got so many, vineyards around me. It's got to be the soil, but I think it's the expertise of the actual growers. They figured this out, as you were talking about Thomas Jefferson, but I read some of the history because I had to prepare for it because of my liquor background. I had to make sure I knew a little bit about wine. But looking at all the work, I think it was Barboursville Vineyards when you learned how to grow grapes in a very effective way. I think it was back, in the 19th century. But I just find it. I think it's the growers. I think it's the expertise we have in Virginia. It's the soil. It's the weather. I think it's the love that the winemakers put into their product also. It's just an incredible thing.
Now, wine does not grow by itself. The government and the private sector have worked together a lot with that. How has the government in Virginia worked with the wine industry?
Well, I've seen that, with help with distribution, with the remote tasting rooms and things like that, I can see that explosion happening, right? And they're able to go direct to the consumer. And I think that's a wonderful thing about the Virginia wine industry is they're able to go direct to the consumer. You have a great product. You can give them that experience, and it's something I've been working for in my industry, is to have those same type of advantages, to go direct to the consumer. And I think the wine industry here in Virginia has perfected that in so many ways, especially when you go into great tasting rooms, and it's just incredible. I'm not, a connoisseur. I drink wine, right? I love that, but I know the buttery Chardonnay, right? That's, but it's amazing to me when you go into the wine tasting rooms how they've perfected that experience.
Now, you mentioned it's a wonderful thing. For you being a member of Congress, it must be a wonderful thing for you that less than 30 miles from where we're sitting on Capitol Hill, there are great wineries.
Oh, yes.
You can go to the best basketball in the country now and drink the best craft breweries, wineries, and distilleries, and it's all constituent casework for you. Now, I know you're dedicated to your constituents.
Yes, it's, I've had some casework at wineries and breweries.
Now, casework, was that pun intended? Or?
Well, it was a little bit. But it depends on the casework. But it's been amazing because we've been talking to not only breweries but wineries and distilleries about small business, about investment in the community and how much they contribute. And I read a stat, and I think this is correct, and I'm sure the wine industry know it better than me. I think the wine industry contributes about $1.5 billion to the Virginia economy.
Nice.
And when you look at that and you look at the beautiful area that I live in, which is incredible, I think we have to make sure that we perpetuate the wine industry and support it any way we can.
Now, I come from a long line of farmers from both sides of my family in the Shenandoah Valley, which I don't think a lot of people realize how beautiful it is. I remember the first time I went to the Napa Valley and I was driving around, I thought, Dear Lord, anyone who thinks this is something special has never been to the Shenandoah Valley in Virginia.
That's right, they haven't. And for me, I'm on Route 151, near Wintergreen, Nelson County. I am biased, and I love my state, and I love my Commonwealth.
And your constituents.
Oh, and my constituents. But let me tell you, Nelson County is gorgeous.
Yes, it is.
It's amazing. And the fact I got 50 acres on the Rockfish River there, the fact is that people have called it the Napa Valley, that we are the Napa Valley of Virginia, right, going through there. And when people visit our area, and you have Ennis Mountain, and you have Pilot Mountain, you have the Blue Ridge Parkway, and you see all of the industry that's going on our road, because they call Route 151 the Liquor Highway of Virginia, the Thirsty Highway, the Blue Ridge Highway, all that. But it's amazing that we do have something so beautiful this close to visit, with incredible entrepreneurs and incredible winemakers, and everybody in the alcohol industry that's just doing incredible things right now.
I'll never forget the first time I drove the Blue Ridge Parkway. I didn't even know I was in America. I thought, this must be something like, the Canadian Rockies or something like that. What did you feel the first time you drove the Blue Ridge Parkway the entire distance?
Well, oh goodness gracious! I mean, I've done it so many times now. Hit the Skyline Drive and Blue Ridge Parkway, back and forth so many times. Every time you go up there, you just know how blessed you are to be a Virginian.
Yes.
That is really what it comes down to.
Now, speaking of America, like so many others in this country, I have a disdain for career politicians and pointy-headed bureaucrats, and a great love for guys like you who serve their country and then run for office. What led you to run for office?
Anger. So you do something, in your life. It was service, to begin with for me when I joined the military. Then I went into working for the National Security Agency as a defense contractor. Then I started my own company as a CEO. So you have this thing that's the American dream. And as the oldest of 8 kids coming from nothing, I always felt like, wow, this can only happen in America. From food stamps, to selling a company in 2012 and taking my wife and daughters to Scotland, where it was at that point my wife said, hey, I want to start a distillery, because she's the CEO and master distiller. And she's brilliant. And for 4 years, it really was my fight against ABC, but also my fight against government regulations as a citizen. Somebody who thought that we lived in a free economy in a free country, where you get very, very angry. And then other people, I started to fight for other people just based on what you get called into. And I just find it amazing that people still don't understand what entrepreneurs go for on the regulatory side. And it is DNA service. And the alcohol industry is awful, and it's stratified too, right? There's special interests fighting everywhere, and really I think what everybody wants, they want a free and fair way of doing business without the government picking winners and losers, and without using regulations as a cudgel or weaponizing regulations and compliance against these industries. There was a lot of other things going on to make me run, but it's a service thing, it's a DNA thing. I hated politicians, and I hate politics. But I think people who hate politics have to get involved. If they don't, we're stuck with these, lifelong career politicians who look at this as a career field and not service, and then they look at it as power and keeping their position, rather than what's doing right for their constituency, and that's why I ran.
From working on the Hill for over a decade, I have a very high regard for members of Congress, but I don't think there's enough farmers, I don't think there's enough small businessmen, I don't think there's enough from the military who serve their country like you. Do you feel your background as a small businessman has helped you on the Hill?
I think it's put me in a unique position, because if I'm able to start a DoD business where you're working with big data, counterterrorism, counterintelligence, working with quick reaction capabilities and technologies, I have this ability as a businessman to look at things from probably a different perspective than a politician. And you're looking at it from a common sense solution-based way of doing things, rather than what is the ideological way or the political way that just helps me get reelected. Now there's some danger to that. If you're trying to actually get things done, sometimes you can fall into a trap where the far parts of each party can go a little bit crazy and start screaming, right? But you just have to get used to it and have a thick skin.
I was reading the book Shoe Dogs by Phil Knight, the founder of Nike, and he had talked about how he had some problems with the government. He came to the Hill, and his 2 senators from Oregon took care of his problems, and he was stunned that they were so helpful. Have the businessmen in your district been stunned about how helpful you are to their needs?
I think they've been pretty happy, especially for our fight on infrastructure, rural broadband, but also on continually trying to deregulate. And even with trying to ease lending, we put in some bills to ease rural lending, HR 1036. I just put in another bill just now to help it make it easier for municipalities to get money and co-ops so that they can actually lend. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to actually deregulate and then incentivize at the same time those who wish to use those type of monies to build businesses in our district. I think what people are seeing on that deregulation side and helping with private-public partnerships, if you can do that simultaneously, I think you can create economic miracles. There was something when I was in the military, a B-1 bomber, right? We tried to put 2 bombs on top of one target. We called it consecutive miracles. I think if you do the right things economically, I think you can create consecutive miracles in a specific environment. And if I can put bombs on target, with economic incentives and deregulation and cutting taxes and private-public partnerships, if I can continue to actually target with consecutive miracles, I think you can have economic development that we've never seen before in the 5th District of Virginia.
So has your military service helped you serve better as a member of Congress?
It helps me keep on mission, and it gives me a thick skin. When you get yelled at, your whole life in the military, when you're doing stupid stuff, when you're doing stupid stuff.
If you were doing stupid stuff your whole life, you were destined to be elected.
Destined to be elected to Congress. But if you make mistakes, you hear about it and you learn from those mistakes. But you also learn to stay on mission and have a thick skin, because you do get in arguments with other people who are professionals where you think you're right, they think they're right, and you have to come to some type of solution. I would say this: a lot of people think the military is completely rigid and tough. The thing is, within that structure, I've never seen more flexibility in decision making than the United States Air Force. And to be trained that way by officers, to be enlisted and an officer, to see both sides, it just gives you this unique perspective that you can't be a free thinker within a chain of command and get things done. And I think that's been very valuable to me.
Now, one of my closest friends, he was in the Air Force for 30 years as a colonel. He graduated from the Air Force Academy. He said they had sort of a standard which was known as no reason, just policy. Have you brought that up to the hill?
That's so funny, because Academy guys pale in comparison to ROTC guys. But I'm just kidding, Academy guys. I love you. But sorry. But no, that's the thing, is that here, listen, I've tried so hard to fight on the battlefield of ideas with policy, right? And to know that sometimes you got to wiggle back and forth based on the solution that you need. I had an old special operations colonel, one of my mentors, tell me one time, he goes, "Denver, listen, you always want to do what's right based on your soul and your conscience, and you want to do that, right? Never go away from your values." He said, "But sometimes if you got 50 people working for you, you got to do things you don't want to do to make sure that they get what they need." And it's something that stuck with me my whole life. As a leader, sometimes you got to make tough decisions. And those tough decisions can get you shot in the face sometimes by people who don't agree with them. But the people that are working for you and moving forward, they know you care about them, you love them, and they're the leader. And I've seen leaders like that for me that have personified that kind of greatness where, it's not exactly what they thought they needed to do. They did it for the good of the unit. And I think that's something that's been forgotten in service, and I hope we can bring that back with people who's been in the military and business owners back into Congress.
Now, I grew up outside of Annapolis, and most of my friends went to the Naval Academy or Air Force or the other ones, and I can tell you, you're not going to meet sharper people than career military officers, that's for sure. Now, my cousin, he was a fighter pilot for the Air Force. He flew the
Except for fighter pilots.
Well, Jake flew the stealth, and as we were talking, you
that's
familiar
right.
with some of those missions. He flew the stealth for the 415th Air Tactical Squadron. Jay's bandit handle was Jake the Snake, and as you know, the 415th was known as the Night Stalkers. And Jay told me that the best thing about being in the Air Force was when they would build a new base, they would put the golf course in first and then the runways next. What was the best thing for you about being in the Air Force?
Well, golf courses, were great. And by the way,
for the pilot.
He was Jake the Snake. My call sign was Chunk. So, when I was in the Air Force, honestly, the best thing about the Air Force, you can call it professional development, education, all the possibilities that you have with the opportunities as you go forward. But the best thing about the Air Force to me was that you realized that when you fight, it is about America, it is about the Constitution, you take that oath, but you're always fighting for your brothers and sisters first, because it's actually your buddies that are going into battle with you. And I think what you learn when you're in the military, it doesn't matter if you're white, doesn't matter if you're black, doesn't matter if you're brown, the only thing that matters is red, white, and blue. And I think that's something that I've been able to carry as I've been running for office for all of my 11 months in politics. It is about red, white, and blue. It's not about color, ethnicity, creed, race. It's not about gender. It's what it's about. It's about protecting those to your left and your right, and I think that's something we need to bring into Congress.
And Representative, whenever I've interviewed congressmen from across the country for this show, water is always a big issue for the wine industry. Is that the same in Virginia?
Well, I don't know. I mean, for me, water wasn't that big of a deal. We hit 30 gallons a minute, at 75 feet, with a pH of 6.1 through rock, and we dug to 267 feet, so I got 30 gallons per minute. I got great pressure, I got constant pressure pumps. I mean, water isn't a problem for me. I know in the Rockfish Valley where I'm at, it seems like water is the one thing we have plenty of. I don't know enough about, other portions of the state when it comes to water. I haven't heard anything about water issues in the wine industry. My guess is after this interview, if there are, I will hear about it. So I'll make sure that, anybody who wants to come and tell me what's up, I'd love to hear about it because we'll do something to fix it.
Hey, so when I was younger and still under the romance of the wine industry, I looked at buying a winery and then realized, that was way out of my range. Best thing I could do was marry someone whose family was rich enough to own a winery. But I thought, I will open up a distillery because you don't have to have the land and the other stuff. What was it like for you opening a distillery? What led you to do that?
Well, my wife. So I sold my company in 2012, and I don't want to stereotype, but my wife is Scottish and Irish. So when I asked, so here we go. So I took them to Scotland. They wanted to stay in the castle where Gerard Butler was. They thought he was a great-looking man. And he ain't bad, right? So anyway, so we go up there, and I'm with my wife. We're at Ben Nevis Distillery outside of Fort William, and I'm like, hey, honey, you have followed me around since I was 16 years old. What do you want to do? And she goes, honey, I want to make liquor.
Well, my cousin said doing the Scotch tour turned him into a Scotch drinker.
Well, she loves Scotch, but she always wanted to do a bourbon that rivaled Kentucky. And now she's in the Bourbon Hall of Fame for the ABV network. She has 18 international awards, I believe. But it was her vision that I wanted to do. I wanted to do that for her because, she gave up everything for our family. I was deployed multiple times and my wife would stay back with the kids. She gave up everything for my family. And here's my wife who's prettier, smarter, just more courageous, one of the most amazing human beings on earth. Like, she will do something incredible, and she has. And now, she's a CEO master distiller. My daughters run our distilleries in Virginia and Pennsylvania. They do it all. It costs us, and I'll tell you this, if you're going to start a distillery in Virginia, think twice. But all of a sudden, once I got elected to Congress, you're not going to believe that some of the laws passed. We've been trying to get passed in Virginia. I don't know how that happens, right? So, but if you're going to do it, make sure you do your due diligence. And but what's amazing about our business in Virginia really is the water, the climate, Nelson County. But the one person who makes it go is my wife. This is her dream, and I promised her it was time for me to follow her around a little bit.
Yeah, I've had friends who've done distillery tours in Virginia, and they say they have some of the best single malts they've ever had. Do you get that same feedback at yours?
Yeah, our bourbon just won best bourbon in the world, I think, under 4 years or something like that, the New Orleans Bourbon Festival. Our rye whiskey has won everything. Our goodness gracious, our honey rye, they call it honey rage because everybody wants it. It's like there's a line out the door, it's just incredible.
It's Kentucky Derby weekend coming up.
It is. I got invited there, but I had constituent meetings, so I'm skipping the Kentucky Derby so I could stay in my district. And because you get invited everywhere, by the way, when you're in Congress.
Oh, yes.
You get invited everywhere. But I think, we have just found that with the water, the grains, we have a continuous distillation column, the incredible help we got from Kentucky distillers who were just incredible to us.
It's a brotherhood in that.
And for her, and for her, now they're creating this women in bourbon, and she's now in this sisterhood, right, of liquor makers, and she is just killing it. And I look around, I'm like, my gosh, the creativity that she has and my daughters have, and everything they do from making the liquor to the branding all the way to the digital marketing. I'm like, goodness gracious, their talent is just out of this world.
My dad used to say you want to marry a female who drives a Cadillac and owns her own liquor store, but it sounds now like probably it's going to be their own distillery. In terms of showing the love to the sisterhood of the beverage industry, what's the craft beer industry like in your district?
Oh, we love them. We're sharing barrels with them. They're making, they're making liquor, and it's so funny when you talked about what to marry. What was that? Who do you marry?
Well, my dad used to say that he drives a Cadillac and has her own liquor store.
My wife drives a GMC and makes her own liquor. So it's close. It's close, But she drives a big old HD 2500. But I think with the craft beer, we have some incredible friends and some women, right? And even on our on our road, you got Blue Mountain, which is Taylor Manny Smack, right? And
well, Charlottesville's like the mecca for craft beer. I mean,
oh, it's everywhere. I mean, it's everywhere up there. I mean, and
I'm not a craft beer kind of guy. I think I had a Sam Adams Light once at a baseball game.
That's,
show you how long ago it was. I think the Orioles won and Chris Davis hit a home run. But I
think that was 1936.
Probably right. I think the craft beer is booming in New York State.
It is booming, and it's all around us. Charlottesville, it's all around us. But if you look at just on our road, we have what 3 breweries, back to back, 4 breweries back to back to back, and it's just incredible to me how it's exploded and how many people go there and how they perfected the tasting experience. And but yeah, and they're using our barrels for some pretty good beer. So.
Yeah, well, Congressman, we'll get to the end. So let's end it with the last question. What are your favorite Virginia wine memories?
Oh my gosh. Well, I was sitting. Am I allowed to, I don't know if I want to mention wineries that have. I don't want people not to think I love them all.
But you mentioned plenty, so
yeah. So my favorite wine memory.
You're not a career politician, so you
no. Here we go. My favorite wine memory is what King family did for my daughter. She was getting married. She wanted a very small wedding, and they have the Polo, out there, King Family Vineyard in Charlottesville. But the fact is, in a pretty quick time, because she wanted to move to Pennsylvania and start our Pennsylvania distillery. So her and her son-in-law, and I offered them a lot of money so they didn't have to have a wedding, by the way. But anyway, but they wanted to have a very small, beautiful wedding on our property and then have something at King Family. My best memory is sitting there with some of our favorite wines in the world in a beautiful private room with wines back from I don't know how long, being served by incredible people, and just the intimacy of it, the incredible wines. And in fact, we could walk outside and see this beautiful vista in Albemarle County, Virginia. Probably my all-time favorite memory is me and my daughter, King Family Vineyard.
That is wonderful. Well, Congressman, it's time to cork this episode.
Yes.
Bipartisan Appeal of Wine. It's been a pleasure. So
thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Jonathan Yates with Wine Channel Television. Thank you for joining us.